back, everybody, to Cosmic Circus Reviews. Today we're talking about Blue Beetle, which is the latest movie in the DCEU. This is not part of the DCU. I know James Gunn wants you to believe that it is part of the DCU and that Jaime Reyes will be a huge part of the DCU going forward, but let's be real, he just wants you to see the movie. Okay, I hope he will be part of the DCU because the movie was actually pretty good. But as far as I'm concerned, this is part of the DCEU. This is one of the last films that is going to be released in the DCEU. The last movie is going to be Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is the penultimate chapter in the DCEU, and it is directed by Angel Manuel Soto. Xolo Maridueña, I hope I pronounced his name right, plays Blue Beetle. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. Like I said, I really enjoyed this movie. But before I talk about the movie as a whole, I am going to say this. This review will contain major spoilers for Blue Beetle. So if you have not seen Blue Beetle, you should not watch this video. If you don't care, fine. But if you do care, want to see Blue Beetle without knowing much, just know that this review will contain spoilers for Blue Beetle. So it's safe to say that DC will probably have its worst year ever with a string of box office bombs. And it's not necessarily James Gunn's fault. Well, I mean, yeah, because, he came in January, announced a bunch of films and a bunch of TV shows, and then went, well, go see our upcoming movies that will have absolutely nothing to do with the DCU, but go see them anyways, and people were turned off by that. I did enjoy Shazam! Fury of the Gods. A lot of people didn't like that movie. I enjoyed it, but made no money. Then, The Flash was terrible, absolutely terrible. They tried to build this narrative around that it was one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. It was not. It was awful. And it lost a lot of money. It's one of the biggest box office bombs of all time, if not the biggest box office bomb in Warner Brothers history. Blue Beetle is going to bomb, and Aquaman is probably going to bomb. So it's they've had a really, really, really bad year. But I will say, in terms of critical reception, people seem to really enjoy Blue Beetle, and I will say that I did have fun with this movie, even if it is incredibly predictable and amazingly conventional. So, the movie starts like any superhero origin story starts with the underdog story, right? This movie is, I think, pretty much an almost carbon copy of Spider-Man 1 in the hero's journey, whereas the hero has a very sort of dorky persona, kind of. He aspires to greatness, but he doesn't achieve greatness. And then, his life changes when he becomes a hero. A father figure will die in the middle section of the film, giving him fuel and inspire him to become a hero, and then, of course, beat the bad guy at the end. It really closely follows the template that Sam Raimi laid out in the first Spider-Man, and doesn't really innovate in that regard when it comes to origin stories. It is enjoyable, but I saw everything coming a mile away. Like, at the beginning of the film, Jaime Reyes comes back from school, so he's graduated in school, and his family tells him that his father, played by Damian Alcazar, has had a heart attack. Now, he's fine, but that just foreshadows the fact that he's going to die during the middle of the film. And he does. He has a heart attack. He has another heart attack in the middle of the film, and he dies. And it's like, well, you see everything coming a mile away. If they hadn't mentioned that in the first act of the film, I think it would have worked better. It would have been more emotional. But since they mentioned it at the beginning of the movie, you're like, well, okay, he's going to die. And so his death scene, as emotional as it could be, doesn't really hit, in my opinion. Alcazar is very good at the film, but you see it coming, and you see everything coming in the sense that you see how Jaime's evolution as a character is going to end up. Like, he meets a girl, Jenny Court, for the Bruno Magazine. They have this will they, won't they relationship. Of course, they're going to fall in love together. Of course, he's going to defeat the bad guy. Of course, he's going to become a hero. You see everything coming a mile away, and in that regard, it's not very impressive. But the movie itself is still very enjoyable. And I did, I did find myself enjoying it very much, even if I have some qualms with it. The biggest qualm that I have is how perfunctory the story is. Jaime Reyes, he has a job working for Victoria Court, played by Susan Sarandon. He gets fired on his first day because, his sister, played by Melissa Escobedo, wanted to take a dump in a bathroom at Victoria's Court's house. She gets caught. She fires them both. But then Jenny tells Jaime, hey, if you need a job, just come to Court Industries tomorrow and I'll give you a job. But then the job that he is given is to guard this thingamajig called the Scarab. And what he doesn't know is that the Scarab grants him powers, and the Scarab, once he touches it, binds itself to his body, and he becomes the Blue Beetle. And then, of course, Victoria Court is looking for the Scarab because she wants to use the Scarab to activate these one-man army corps or something like that. I think it's called like OMAC. Yeah, I forget. It's extremely forgettable in that regard, and the villain really sucks. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so she hunts down Jaime's family with Carapax, played by Raul Max Trujillo. He's great. He's amazing. And you have the hero versus the villain, and it's extremely conventional in that regard. I do want to talk about the villain, Victoria Court, because I do think that Susan Sarandon, as great as an actor as she is, and an activist as well, she's been very spoken during the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. As great of a human being, of a humanitarian, of an actor that she is, I am going to say it. She gives, I think, the worst performance of her career in this movie. And in my opinion, I've seen most of the stuff that she was in, at least most of the mainstream stuff. But in my opinion, she gives really the first bad performance of her career. She hasn't done, even movies that weren't good, she was always good. Like Susan Sarandon was always good. Like she never really mailed it in. And she doesn't necessarily mail it in here, but the material they give her is awful. Like it's super cliche. It's like, when I get my hands on the Scarab, I'm gonna be able to control the world with my Omax and stuff like this. It's like so cartoonish. And the way she delivers those lines, she knows how bad it is. She's like, well, whatever. And she can see the paycheck at the end of the tunnel, so she's like, fine. And it's in that vein that she sort of portrays that character, and it is awful. Like I was embarrassed just watching her like say the things that she says in the movie. I was profoundly embarrassed because she's usually very good in everything. But in this movie, I went like, wow, is it me or is she bad? And she was really bad. And it really sucks because initially, I don't know if you guys remember, but initially the role was supposed to be played by Sharon Stone. And I feel like Sharon Stone would have done a really great job with this material because she can sell being incredibly campy, right? She's done a lot of really campy stuff, Sharon Stone. Susan Sarandon, not so much. Susan Sarandon has done a lot of human stuff, like Little Women, Dead Men Walking. Possibly her greatest performance is in that film. I remember when I was a little kid when I watched the Little Women movie. But in this, she's really bad. Like her timing isn't good. She knows that the lines she's been given, it's not doing her a single favor. And I was just like, I was cringing so hard every time she went on screen. And even when she orders like her doctor, Dr. Sanchez, his name is not Sanchez, right? We know his name at the end of the film, Dr. Sanchez, but his name is Dr. Sanchez during the end credits. He's played by Harvey Guillen. I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce names. I apologize. I really apologize. But he was in What We Do in the Shadows and the new Puss in Boots movie. And he was really good in the movie. A little underused. When she orders him around, when she orders Carapax around, like it's not. I never bought into this woman as being like a very powerful and a very menacing villain. She was not menacing in the slightest. And any line that she would say was not good. Like she was probably the most poorly written character of the entire movie, because Carapax, right, was amazing. Every single time Raul Trujillo would show up on screen, I was watching the film like this, and I would go like this, or maybe like this. It's true. Like, I was just like, oh man, the performance that he gives in this film is just phenomenal. Oh my goodness. He doesn't say much, but the glare that he gets, like, as soon as he is introduced in this movie, he's actually the first character we see in the film. Comes out of a tent, it's snowing, he's looking at Cord, and you're like, oh my god, this guy, I would never want to be around with this guy ever. That's the vibe that he gives, like the general vibe that he gives. But we understand why he is like that. There's actually one of the most powerful scenes of the film comes near the end, where the Scarab, voiced by Becky G, shows Jaime why Carapax is like that, and get to see an extensive flashback of him, of his childhood with his mother, soldiers bombing her mother's house, and then Cord taking him away, experimenting on him, torturing him. I mean, Jesus, like, I was deeply unsettled when I was watching this, and you really feel for him. Like, you don't feel for him before that, because you're like, man, this guy is scary. And when he says something to Jaime like, the love for your family makes you weak, that's it's a line that sticks with you, but the way he delivers it is just terrifying. And then we get to see where he comes from. This never happens, by the way. In most comic book films, you never get to see the villain, like, where he comes from. Like, they try to do it in Secret Invasion with Gravik, like a little flashback with Talos and Sam and Nick Fury. They try to do that little flashback, but it didn't work because you don't really see where he comes from, and we don't necessarily see why he hates Nick Fury so much. But in this, it's like, okay, we're actually going to show you how the villain became bad in like 2 minutes, and then you're going to be deeply unsettled, and you're going to feel for him more than you feel for anybody else. And that's a very, very, very ambitious feat. But the way that they do it is just really well done. And it's possibly my favorite scene in the entire movie, because they never do this in comic book films. They never, ever, ever just peer into the eyes of the antagonist. Like, because usually when you have an antagonist become the villain, like a Otto Octavius in Spider-Man 2, well, we get to see it from Peter Parker's eyes. But in this one, it's like, no, we get to see it from Carapax's eyes. We get to see what happened to him, and it's really powerful stuff. And that final fight with him and Jaime is a real stunner, and it's emotionally very powerful and potent. But it wouldn't have worked if the performer was not good. But he is exceptional. He should have been the main villain of the film, hands down. Because every time he would show up, I'm like, okay, this is gonna go down. This is gonna be incredible, and it was incredible. But every time Susan Sarandon would come in, I'm like, really? Oh, because it's weird because the other characters, and Carapax as well, but the other characters in the movie are all really well written and really well performed. I especially liked the relationship that Jaime has with his family. Like, with his father, he shares really tender and poignant scenes with him that I found were really well written, really well acted, really emotional. George Lopez is an icon. Since he played Mr. Electric in Shark Boy and Lava Girl, he's an icon, right? You're in my class, not the other way around. I know everything, and you know nothing. I love this movie. I'm sorry, I love that movie, and I think George Lopez is amazing. But he plays the comic relief Uncle Rudy. He's a conspiracy nut. In each family, there's a conspiracy nut. I'm sorry. Even in my family, I'm not going to talk about my family, but let's say like during the pandemic, we're all vaccinated. Okay, all my families, there's no anti-vaxxers. But some people in my family believe in conspiracies. At least one or two people in my family believe strongly in conspiracies. We all have conspiracy nuts in our families. So we can easily relate to Uncle Rudy by George Lopez. And he gives a really good performance as well in this film. Elpidia Carrillo, excuse me, I'm so bad at names. Oh my goodness. She plays Jaime's mother. She was in Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's great in this movie as well. And Adriana Barraza, who plays the grandmother, is awesome. Oh my goodness. So I think it's in the trailer. I forget. But someone picks out a gun, and the sister's like, "Grandma, like, how do you know how to do this?" And then she she starts to harken back to her past as a revolutionary and knows like everything. Okay, we're gonna break into this tunnel. This is how we go in. This is how we kill all these people. Right? Like, the audience was laughing very hard. They were laughing much harder than when George Lopez would shriek, which unfortunately some of the humor works very well with George Lopez. He's great in the film. Some of it doesn't. When he's more emotional, it works more than when he's trying to be funny. The humor is hit or miss, but the humor with the grandmother, I mean, that was gold, absolute gold. And I loved that dynamic with Jaime, his sister, and the grandmother was great. So the whole family dynamic was really well done, and I like how they integrate the family in the action. Because usually in most superhero movies, the family is not a part of the action, right? It's the hero. Like in Shazam, it's it's the foster children, but the parents aren't necessarily involved. The foster parents aren't necessarily involved. I think in the last one, again, I may forget. I think in the last one they were involved in the action, or they knew about their powers. I watched way too many movies. It's the thing is gets blurred. You can correct me in the comments if I was wrong, but usually they're not involved. But in this movie, they involved everybody. They involved the sister, right, with a power glove. They involved grandma with the gun, the huge ass gun. That's awesome. Oh man. And they involve everybody in the action because they know how strong their bond is, and they just want to help Jaime, become the hero that he was always meant to be. And that aspect of the film is really well made. The action sequences are also really damn good. Like really, really, really damn good. It really helps, I think, to have Paweł Pogorzelski. Again, I'm terrible with names. Oh my goodness. He worked with Ari Aster. He did Hereditary, Midsommar, and recently Beau is Afraid. Well, he's the cinematographer for this film. And Beau is Afraid has a number of very weird action sequences. Very weird action sequences. And the way that he shoots them was very impressive, right? Because the sense of timing is very important. When you shoot action and it needs to have a certain type of energy, right? It needs to feel cathartic to the viewer. And the way that he would shoot these action sequences in Beau is Afraid had a great sense of timing, an incredible visual style. And so he was a great fit for this film. And most of the action sequences are actually shot with IMAX cameras, and it looks immaculate in IMAX. Like some people are pissed that Blue Beetle is taking over IMAX screens as Oppenheimer is still making tons of money. And by the way, Oppenheimer is still playing in IMAX. Like you have Oppenheimer, you have Gran Turismo, and you have Blue Beetle. They're all playing in IMAX at the same time. My 70mm theater is still playing Oppenheimer. Okay, Blue Beetle is playing in other IMAX theaters. But honest to God, if you saw the film in IMAX, you would notice how great the photography is. I mean, the colors, the level of detail. I don't want to go into the IMAX chill mode again like I did with Gran Turismo, but the level of detail in the colors that an IMAX camera can really capture is it is beyond lifelike, and it looks so good, so good on the screen. The fight between Carapax and Jaime at the beginning of the film is so well made, so well crafted in IMAX. Blue Beetle's first iteration, Jaime's first experience with the Scarab, that scene in IMAX was also really well made. When he went to space, and would go fly back, that was really, we're in his point of view, and the way that they use the IMAX cameras in those scenes were really well made. It was really well crafted, and the scene, you see it in the trailer when he fights a bunch of people in an underground cave. That's a whole scene was shot in IMAX, and the reds are extremely bright. extremely contrasted as well. And the level of detail, that's what I wanted to bring up. The level of detail of an IMAX camera is so, I mean, so astounding that you kind of buy into Jaime's skills, and you're more immersed, you're more sort of engulfed because your peripheral vision, right? Because an IMAX camera fills the whole screen, fills your peripheral vision, and you're more sort of forced to be invested in the, right? When the aspect ratio shifts, because this is not entirely shot in IMAX, the aspect ratio is going to shift. When the aspect ratio shifts, you're far more invested into the movie, and the way that they use IMAX for those particular action sequences was really good, you know. And the action scenes they have a bigger emphasis on practical action than the CGI driven action, because the CGI in this movie is not very good. There's one scene in particular when he visits his dad in the afterlife. They go into this weird sort of quantum realm-ish world. I was like, this is not good. This does not look good at all. And I am not buying into this. I think the conversation that he has with his father is good, but the what's behind him is just, it looks awful. Absolutely awful. But you know, the IMAX photography itself, when it's practical, right, and when you can feel it's practical, is extremely well crafted. And there's a lot of really cool moves that Pogorzelski does with the IMAX camera, right? A lot of corkscrew shots. I have to use my hands a little bit, you know. Camera goes upside down. It's always fun, right? But the way that you also use neon colors to really accentuate the aesthetics of the film also work really well, and I really enjoyed that in the movie. So yeah, give it a chance, man. Like, oh yeah, Oppenheimer. If you've seen Oppenheimer on IMAX, man, and you've seen it 1,000 times, that's fine. But give Blue Beetle a chance, and you'll see why IMAX is playing it, because it looks great. It looks great on their screens, and the IMAX scenes are pretty good. Are they as refined as in Oppenheimer? No, but it's always great to see a film when it's shot in IMAX, especially on those screens. The score is great. Speaking of Beau is Afraid, which was shot by Paweł Pogorzelski, it was also scored by Bobby Krylik, who scores Blue Beetle. Highly reminiscent of Trent Reznor's and Atticus Ross's score in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I feel it's very similar, and because of this, it's great. Really enjoyed that aspect of the movie as well. It does leave a door open for Jaime Reyes' potential return to DCU. Of course, you will know that Blue Beetle is a close ally to Booster Gold. So if, you know, the DCU is doing Booster Gold, then they're probably going to include Blue Beetle in that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jaime Reyes shows up, or Ted Kord shows up in Booster Gold, because, you know, in the movie they mentioned Ted Kord being dead or disappeared, but in the mid-credit scene it is revealed that Ted Kord is alive. So is Booster Gold going to be a prequel, and are we going to see Ted Kord as Blue Beetle? Because it is implied here, well, it's not implied, it's shown that Ted Kord was actually the original Blue Beetle, and now Jaime Reyes is taking over the mantle. So we will maybe see Blue Beetle again at DCU. That'd be great, because I honestly enjoyed Xolo Maridueña's portrayal of Jaime Reyes. He was incredible. Honestly, it sucks that the movie's not going to do very well, but I think he deserves the world. And he's very well positioned to be one of the biggest stars out there, for sure. I mean, he was great in Cobra Kai, and it's no surprise how talented he is, how emotional he is. Right? He's funny. He's got a great sense of comedic timing. Right? Emotional. He gets really vulnerable and deep in the end. And, you know, he also kicks a lot of ass. So what's not to love? You know, and so yes, I do hope that we will be seeing him again in the DCU. I don't want to get my hopes up, because I know this movie's not going to do very well. It's a shame. It really is a shame, because the movie's good. Like, the movie's actually good. Maybe it'll be an Elemental sleeper hit. Who knows? Because Elemental, when it opened, it bombed. And people wrote it off. I certainly wrote it off, because I did not like that movie at all. Like, I really did not like that movie. But it became a sleeper hit. maybe Blue Beetle will suffer the same fate. Will have the same fate. It's not suffer because if it's a sleeper hit, it will do well. But we'll see. I certainly hope that it will do well because I think these stars deserve the world, especially now in an era where Hollywood is in complete shambles with the SAG-AFTRA strikes and with the WGA strike, which will not end anytime soon. I mean, of course, there have been some positive developments when it comes to the WGA strike with the AMPTP meeting with the WGA, but who knows? Like, in my opinion, you really shouldn't trust trades with any strike developments. You should just trust the unions. When the unions tell you the strike is over, the strike is over. But we haven't heard that right now, so this can go on for a long time. And so I think if you like good movies, if you like movies that are entertaining, Blue Beetle is certainly film that will entertain you. It is not the best superhero movie of all time. It's not the best superhero movie of the year. That's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, hands down. I don't think it's going to change, for me, at least. But it is very entertaining. And I think a lot of people will really enjoy this movie. If you've seen it all, if you've seen Oppenheimer, you've seen Gran Turismo, you're awaiting the next blockbuster, then go see Blue Beetle. And I think you're going to have a good time with it. So I'm going to go ahead and give Blue Beetle a 7 out of 10. Pretty good considering the state of superhero movies. Is superhero fatigue a thing? In my opinion, no. I think it's general blockbuster fatigue because the blockbusters that are being made as of late are not very good. But this one is, so go check it out. All right, guys. There you have it. That was my review of Blue Beetle. Check the movie out if you haven't. You can follow me on social media at Max from Quebec. Don't follow me on X. I put my account on private because that app is terrible. But follow me on other types of social media. You can follow, of course, the Cosmic Circus on all social medias. And subscribe to this YouTube channel for more reviews like this, and visit their website. Their track records when it comes to scoops is pretty damn good. So definitely check the website out, thecosmiccircus.com. And I look forward to doing another review like this. And hopefully we'll see you guys back here very soon on this YouTube channel. Take care.